cover bus, taxi, and UV Express drivers. Could there be changes in the presidential race soon? The administration's standard bearer, Senator Bongo, says he's not ruling out the possibility of backing down. And human rights activist and staunch Duterte critic sets his eyes on the second highest post in the country. We get up close with former lawmaker Walden Bello live. 1 billion pesos for thousands of jeepney drivers and operators. The government begins distributing cash subsidy to help tide them over amid rising fuel prices and the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's AC Nichols with that story.
With fuel prices going up, jeepney drivers say they are barely making any profit. Transportation officials have eased restrictions to allow for more passengers, but it's not enough.
Dati, okay. Ngayon, pinakamalaki, okay na mga 400. Eh, wala pa, di pa ba normal yung pasahero? Di pa man namin masapilitan na siksikan pa puno.
The government has allotted 1 billion pesos to provide fuel subsidy to around 136,000 jeepney franchise holders. Each beneficiary can receive over 7,000 pesos per jeepney. Some jeepney drivers, however, say their operators take the money, like what happened when a cash grant was released in 2018.
Hindi naman pantawid pasada at tawag doon pantawid operator. Hindi naman binibigay sa amin yung mga card namin
Over 70,000 beneficiaries supposedly received the cash grant through their land bank cash cards. As for the others,
antayin niyo po yung abiso ho sa regional offices po natin kung kailan ho kayo pupunta sa designated land bank branch po ninyo.
The financial aid is supposed to be used only for fuel expenses and only for the vehicle with a plate number indicated on the cash card. The LTFRB has partnered with oil companies where drivers can use the cash cards. Transport officials warn beneficiaries not to withdraw the cash or they would receive a show cause order.
Yung iba dyan, kung i-withdraw nila sa mga ATM machines, we have a mechanism for that. We will be requesting land bank to provide us a copy of those na nagva-violate dun sa undertaking nila.
Fuel price hikes also affect drivers of buses, taxis, and UV Express. However, they are not yet covered by the fuel subsidy program for now. Transportation officials say the train law specifically says that subsidies shall be given to jeepney drivers. They assure other PUV drivers that they are working on solutions to help them out too. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
A lawmaker expects the House of Representatives to approve on final reading before December a bill suspending the fuel excise tax for 6 months. Quezon City Representative Jesus Bong Sunday says the House is bent on approving the measure even if pump prices have gone down in recent weeks. Earlier this month, the House Ways and Means Committee approved a substitute measure reducing excise taxes on diesel, kerosene, and liquefied petroleum gas to zero over a 6-month period. The bill also seeks to temporarily lower the excise tax on low-octane gasoline from 10 pesos to 4 pesos and 35 centavos.
On the part of the House of Representatives, I am sure mapapasa namin yan before December. Yung lang on the part of the Senate, pero I'm sure yung mga kasamahan natin, mga senador natin would also want to give it as a Christmas gift to the Filipino people. Itong hinihingi natin is just a short reprieve. Actually, dun sa panukala ng aming iniayan, we were just asking for 6 months. And willing pa kami maglagay ng doon ng kulatilya, a section na pagka umabot ito ng bumaba sa $65 per barrel, ibabalik na ulit yung additional na excise tax na ipinataw.
At the Senate, Senator Grace Poe also filed earlier this month a bill that seeks the automatic suspension of excise taxes on regular gasoline, unleaded premium gasoline, and diesel. Now, amid the absence of a law requiring vaccination, President Duterte maintains employers have the right not to hire those who have not received COVID-19 shots. Mr. Duterte says this is not discrimination, but a move to protect the workforce. Meantime, the Labor Department says the policy requiring on-site workers to be inoculated will be implemented starting December 1st. Our Tristan Odalo tells us what options are left for the unvaccinated.
Kung ikaw gusto ng trabaho, tapos ayaw mong magpabakuna, hindi obligado ang employer na tanggapin ka.
President Rodrigo Duterte maintains his stand that employers are free to decide on whether or not they will hire unvaccinated workers. In a speech on Tuesday night, Mr. Duterte says the no vaccine, no hire policy is not discriminatory. He adds some unvaccinated people may invoke religious rights for their refusal to get inoculated.
So, ang rason dyan is hindi ako discriminate. Kung hindi, binoprotektahan ko yung negosyo ko.
Meantime, the Labor Department says the implementation of the IATF policy requiring vaccinated workers for on-site jobs on December 1st is a go. No additional guidelines will be issued since the two previous IATF resolutions define the policies for vaccinated workers. Under IATF Resolutions 148 and 149, unvaccinated workers must undergo regular RT-PCR tests at their own expense. It should be done once every 2 weeks. Partially vaccinated workers no longer need to undergo testing, but they must receive their second dose as scheduled.
This is the first time naman po, remember yung advisory ng DOLE, the highly encouraged, is still there. And in fact, the law naman says it's not mandatory. That's why what we're saying here is we do have an option if we don't like to be. Kaya yung mandate na yan is not, kasi kung ayaw nyo mo, yun nga, pwede naman mo kayo magpa-test regularly.
Labor Group Mayo Uno slams the IATF policy requiring vaccinated workers for on-site jobs. The group says the government has yet to fix its rollout of vaccines, so why pass the burden to employees? The Labor Department offers options for unvaccinated workers.
Pwede ho siya mag-work from home. Pero kung wala na po at kailangan talagang on-site, pwede naman siya mag-work, di ba ho? Magpa-testing lang. Kung may leaves siya, it will apply. Kung wala na, we will have to go through the no work, no pay.
Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
President Duterte, in an executive order, says government and private employees who will receive COVID-19 shots during the 3-day national vaccination event on November 29 to December 1st will not be marked as absent if they present proof of inoculation. Telecom firms, banks, and e-commerce platforms are not leaving things to chance. They're sitting down with government agencies today to address the recent spamming activities targeting job hunters. Initial investigations trace the text messages from crime syndicates abroad. Globe says it has already filtered 1 billion messages with malicious content.
Most of these campaigns really do come from global syndicates. We've updated the filters. Hopefully, Globe customers will feel today that they should not see some of these messages anymore. We've tweaked it. I'm sure the scammers will update the contents of the messages, but then we'll just have to tweak it again and hopefully arrest it. Some of the sources that we have seen, again, we've tried to block them, but then again, they keep on hopping around, right? So it will be cat and mouse.
Telcos also say they will send an advisory against these text scams to their subscribers. For its part, Lazada is reminding customers to only transact through its official website and app and communicate only with its legitimate marketplace sellers. The e-commerce giant says it will never ask for personal account details via text or social media. Yet another cyber attack, this time against an upscale retail chain. SNR said a data breach may have compromised some membership information, such as contact details. But the company added that its members' credit card and other financial information are safe and secure. The National Privacy Commission says it received SNR's report last November 15th, a day after the cyber attack. The company made the incident public only this morning. SNR said it immediately carried out cyber security protocols. Up ahead, one senator reveals family executives Mohit and Twinkle Dargani spent nearly 2 million pesos for their aborted chartered flight to Kuala Lumpur. And President Duterte says the country is, quote, slowly but surely beating COVID-19. Details next on Newsnight.
Taliwala pa mga kausaban sa quarantine restrictions. Ipadayon nato ang pagsunod sa minimum public health standards tungod kay mao paghihapon kini ang nagunang paagi aron kapugngan ang pagkatap sa COVID-19 sa atong nasod. Aron kalikayan ang pagbalik sa mas higpit nga quarantine restrictions ug masiguro ang padayong pagbangon sa atong mga komunidad, ayuhon nato ang atong pag-amping. Gidapit nato ang tanang lokal nga pangagamhanan nga ipatuman paghihapon sa husto ang prevent, detect, isolate, quarantine, treat, reintegrate strategies ug mga safety protocols alang sa kaluwasan sa tanan. Sa lahat ng oras, tayo'y mag-ingat upang ating mga komunidad ay maingat. Usa ka mensahe gikan sa DOH, KBP ug niining Sibiyahan. Niining panahon sa pandemya, importante ang paggamit ug paghatod sa
Welcome back to Newsnight. Senator Risa Ontiveros reveals the chartered flight that was supposed to take Farmly executives Mohit and Twinkle Dargani out of the country last week cost nearly 2 million pesos. Ontiveros presented a confidential contract obtained from a source from two Singaporean companies, the rental firm Seletar Jet Charter and its client Air Charter Service. It shows a quotation of $37,000 or around 1.85 million pesos for a private flight from Davao City to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia on November 14th. The senator wants to know how they managed to almost flee the country despite an immigration lookout bulletin order against them. The Darganis are detained in the Senate for refusing to submit documents subpoenaed by lawmakers. Tax experts tapped by the Right to Know, Right Now coalition say Farmly owes the government over 5 billion pesos in taxes for 2020. Ontiveros believes the Dargani siblings may not have been paying the right taxes. The next Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing is set for Friday. Almost 2 years into the pandemic, President Duterte says the country is steadily making progress in the fight against COVID-19.
We are slowly but surely making progress in our COVID-19 campaign. Second, I am very pleased to inform the entire nation that we continue to beat COVID-19. Recent statistics affirm this.
But the president urges the public to stay vigilant and continue to observe safety protocols. This afternoon, the health department reported 890 new COVID-19 cases, the second time this week that infections were below 1,000. Total cases are now more than 2.8 million, with 2.76 million recoveries and over 47,600 deaths. The Philippines receives a new shipment of 700,000 doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. The shots, which were donated by Australia, arrived in the country this morning. The delivery is part of the 3.6 million vaccines that Australia is donating to the Philippines. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez says the 700,000 jabs will be rolled out in the country's nationwide vaccination drive from November 29 to December 1st. Meanwhile, as the world rolls out vaccines and booster shots against COVID-19, AstraZeneca's CEO reminds everyone face masks are still important.
I think it is important people don't give up the masks too quickly. So of course we can't spend our entire life with masks on, but we should get into the habit of wearing them where necessary and not elsewhere. But vaccinations are really the first line of defense.
Amid a spike in COVID-19 cases in Germany, employees going to work will now be required to present proof of COVID-19 vaccination or negative test results, that or risk not getting paid. Under the country's new infection protection law, employers can legally stop paying workers who refuse to present their status, as well as bar them from entering the workplace. But companies must offer at least 2 free tests a week for their employees. They should also allow people to work from home as much as possible. This comes as the European nation doubles down on COVID-19 curbs and restrictions on the unvaccinated. The United States set to release millions of barrels of oil from national reserves in a bid to ease high gas prices. As CNN's Isabel Rosales tells us, other nations such as China and India are joining the effort.
Mounting pressure to lower rising gas prices. I think they're ridiculous. They keep going up and there seems to be no end to it.
President Joe Biden now giving the okay to lift the lid on an emergency stockpile of oil.
While our combined actions will not solve the problem of high gas prices overnight, it will make a difference.
In the thick of the busy holiday travel season, the White House says the Department of Energy will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
That's the amount that we think would be useful to help middle-class consumers get through this period of elevated prices.
China, India, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom will conduct a coordinated release along with the U.S. Americans paying on average $3.40 per gallon, according to AAA. It's aggravating the biggest inflation spike in decades.
750,000 people in Kentucky depend on natural gas or propane to heat their homes. It's a choice, in some cases, between putting food on the table and staying warm.
But it will take weeks before barrels hit the market. While the president was privately advised that tapping into the reserve wouldn't do much to alleviate the current problems, some lawmakers argue it's a start.
I don't think it can hurt.
The move may be largely symbolic, showing nations reluctant to ramp up oil production. The U.S. is serious about taking action. In Washington, Isabel Rosales.
Still ahead on Newsnight, presidential aspirant Isko Moreno will submit himself to a drug test. But for fellow hopeful Leni Robredo, tests should be conducted at random. And we get up close to the vice presidential aspirant who pledges to fight disinformation and protect media workers. Walton Bello joins us live when we return.
Importante ang paggamit ug paghatod sa hustong impormasyon. Ang pagpakalap sa peking balita o fake news may tungod sa mga bakuna batok sa COVID-19 naghatod sa kahadlok ug pagduda. Tungod niini, padayon nga gipahinumduman ang publiko nga ang tanang mga bakuna epektibo ug luwas nga pangdepensa batok COVID-19. Ang mga bakuna sa COVID-19 miagi kini sa masubsob nga pagtuon ug pagsusi sa mga eksperto. Dili kita basta-basta mutuo sa mga hulong-ihong lamang. Inay, mukuha sa mga impormasyon gikan sa kasaligan o beripikadong tinubdan. Ang taong may tiwala sa agham, makakamit ang kaligtasang inaasam. Usa ka pahinumdom gikan sa DOH, KBP ug niining Sibiyahan.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Senator Bongo's presidential bid may not be set in stone. In an interview, the administration's presidential bet admits he is still in a state of shock. Go explains he was all set to run for vice president in next year's elections, but had to step up on orders of his party, PDP Laban.
Sumasagi sa isip mo yun, sir, to just withdraw?
I'm not saying na ganun po, pero nag-aantay lang po ako ng sign sa ating Panginoon.
Thank you.
Para bigyan po ako ng lakas. I'm hurting po, sa totoo lang. Nasasaktan po ako sa sitwasyon sa ngayon. So, yun po ang aking nararamdaman. Kung kailangan ko pong magsakripisyo para sa Pilipino, kailangan ko pong magsakripisyo kay Pangulong Duterte at sa pamilya. Gagawin ko po. Kasi wala naman po ako ambisyon na maging Pangulo.
President Duterte is endorsing Bongo as his successor. Some lawmakers also say the president wants them to vote for his daughter, Sara Duterte, as the next vice president. Sara, however, is running with former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Now, while possible changes in the 2022 presidential race remain to be seen, an expert points out no candidate anointed by the sitting president is assured of victory in the polls. Veteran campaign manager Ronnie Puno says this was proven when former President Fidel Ramos endorsed then Speaker Joe De Venecia in 1998. It was the same thing for ex-President Gloria Arroyo, who backed Gilbert Teodoro in 2010, and the late former President Noynoy Aquino, who supported Mar Rojas in 2016. Puno says this is because Filipinos usually seek change during elections. For political strategist Malu Tiquia, Bongo may have the same fate as those endorsed by the former presidents. She says the senator, who only came into the political scene when Mr. Duterte became president in 2016, needs to, quote, stand on his own. Tiquia adds the tandem of Senator Ping Lacson and Senate President Tito Soto may emerge as the dark horse.
It's not easy as just because you're the aide, everyone will follow the president. Yes, we have a very popular president, but it takes more than just being around and being active in the arena. If you're going to look at tandems, the tandem of Lacson and Soto have all the experience, combined experience. When you pit them against Senator Go, medyo mahihirapan yun. And then there is no vice president. It's a very ludicrous situation.
Catch the replay of my interview with Ronnie Puno and Malu Tiquia on Politics as Usual this Sunday, 7 in the evening, only here on CNN Philippines. Presidential aspirant and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno is set to undergo drug testing at the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency headquarters in Quezon City tomorrow morning. He says he's open to taking any type of drug test, assuring the public he is not into drugs. Moreno will be joined by his running mate, Dr. Willie Ong, and his senatorial bets, Jopet Sison, Carl Balita, and Samira Gutok. Moreno earlier wrote to PIDEA asking the agency to immediately test him for the use of cocaine, shabu, marijuana, and all other illegal substances. Vice President Leni Robredo Miwa says she would rather take a random and unannounced drug test. Robredo made the statement while her fellow aspirants were announcing their drug test results. She says surprise tests would be better to reveal the, quote, real situation. Robredo adds it is self-serving to submit herself to a drug test, but that she is ready to do it anytime. Calls for hopefuls to take drug tests stem from President Duterte's allegations that one of them is using cocaine. Among those who have publicized their drug test results were presidential aspirants Bongbong Marcos, Senators Manny Pacquiao and Ping Lacson, and Vice Presidential aspirant and Senate President Tito Soto. Meanwhile, Vice Presidential aspirant and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte says she took the tests, which all turned out negative, following the request of her running mate, Bongbong Marcos. Mayor Sara adds this is to show their, quote, common stance against illegal drugs and to support the call for transparency among aspiring public officials. A former lawmaker and human rights activist vows to defend press freedom as he throws his hat into the 2022 race. On Twitter, vice presidential aspirant Walden Bello, the running mate of Labor leader Leoty de Guzman, said they will implement measures to stop attacks against journalists if the tandem succeeds in their election bids. Bello adds they will shut down troll farms and move to restore the franchise of embattled media giant ABS-CBN. The aspirant also remembered the Maguindanao massacre 12 years ago and pledged to seek justice for the victims. 58 people were killed in the incident, including more than 30 media workers. We now have with us for Up Close, Vice Presidential Aspirant Walden Bello. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Very quickly now, let's go through these promises you made about protecting media workers and journalists. Go ahead, sir.
Let me just say that the role of the media is extremely important. We do have a number of major proposals to protect journalists. I would say that we do need a special prosecutorial team that would be just focused on investigating and making sure that justice is done when it comes to the killings or the hurting or the threatening of journalists. That I think is extremely important. We did say that yes, we are going to push for the restoration of the ABS-CBN franchise, and we will dismiss all charges that have been made up by the Duterte administration against Maria Ressa and Rappler. Pia, the problem really is not just random violations by politicians. It is really the mood of being anti-free press that encourages these kinds of violations below. And Malacanang under President Duterte has been so anti-free press, that it's almost like a license, to people that would like to destroy the freedom of the press because their interests are being affected,
Yes.
by local and national journalists.
Yeah.
So we really need to get this atmosphere of intimidation that
Sir.
is represented by Duterte. That is number one. That
Yes, well,
has
sir.
to be removed.
Let's be very specific. When you say that, number one, you're going to move to restore ABS-CBN's franchise and dismiss all these cases against Rappler's Maria Ressa, how exactly are you going to do that? Because, of course, the franchise is the responsibility, hawak yan ng House of Representatives. So, President Leoty de Guzman would order or coax congressmen to give ABS-CBN its franchise, and then for the cases against Maria Ressa et al., you're going to order the judge to rule to dismiss the cases or to say that Maria Ressa is not guilty. Ganun po ba?
Yeah, on the second, on Maria Ressa, you remember it is the executive that has launched these charges against Maria Ressa, okay?
Wasn't it a private citizen? It was a private citizen who filed the cases.
Yes, but it is backed by the executive, okay? And I think that once you have a different administration, that basically says it is not going to support, the prosecution of these charges against Maria Ressa, I think that will make all the difference. Alam mo naman, Pia, nagbibiro tayo eh. Hindi naman yung private citizen na yun is really the one. He's being pushed by Malacanang. That's it. Wag na tayong magbiroan. That's Duterte's ploy. And if we but to go to the second point, yes, Congress will have to take a role in terms of restoring the franchise. But we all know naman, that the reason that those members of Congress voted, to take away the franchise
Is
against
because the president spoke out against ABS. Yes.
You know,
Okay.
was
Well,
because of
yes.
Malacanang's pressure.
Well,
So,
of course, yes. Well, sir, yes. Actually, this private citizen you referred to has already said before that he has done this on his own. Anyway, sir, we need to move on to another favorite topic of yours, Bongbong Marcos and the Marcos family. So, first, my question is, President Duterte has gone after Bongbong Marcos, saying he is a weak leader and a spoiled child. Siyempre, top of mind for all of us kasi is that he's leading the survey. So that's why else would people be attacking him, right, sir? Kasi, diba, papansinin niyo ba siya kung mababa siya sa surveys?
Well, the problem really is, that the Marcos family has, participated, led this effort to try to paint what were the most nightmarish years in our country as a golden era. No? And I think that's, the guy's not running on any platform. It's just on this image. And what we are going to do in this campaign is to expose the fact that he has feet of clay, he has no record, okay? And that all that is being presented is an image that is wrong, that in fact was not the case. He's running on the Marcos legacy of repression and oppression and exploitation. And I think by the time that this campaign is midway, this guy's going to go down in the polls. I mean, Filipinos will appreciate the truth about this fellow. I mean, this is Marcos running again. Is, as I said, this family raped the country for 14 years. They never made any apologies, and this guy wants to rape the country again. Filipinos are not that foolish.
And this is why you want to campaign against them, because, as some people have said, a Marcos victory at the polls would be like vindication for them, right? And in a sense, these elections are like a referendum, not just on President Duterte, but on EDSA 86, correct?
Well, I mean, I think that's true. It will be a referendum on, to some extent, on the inadequacies of what happened of the EDSA government. But I think more important is, that this is really an image of the past, the Marcos era, that is untrue, that is being sold at this point in time. As we said, I and my running mate, Leody de Guzman, are out to, the reason that we're in this process is because we are out to stop the Marcos Duterte axis of evil. And in order to do that, we are presenting a vision for the future that does not bring us back to the dark era of the Marcos period.
Well, sir, yes.
That goes away from the inadequacies of the EDSA period, and of course, away from the bloody reign of Duterte. We are presenting a program, very detailed program for the future, and that's what differentiates us from the other candidates.
Well, part of this effort, like you say, to defeat this axis of evil, as you call it, is to exhume the body of Ferdinand Marcos from the Libingan ng mga Bayani, where it is currently buried, and return it to Batac. So are you saying that if you and Leody de Guzman were to win, the two of you would personally go to the Libingan and oversee the exhumation of the remains and its return to Batac, Ilocos Norte?
Yes, and we will charge the Marcos family for the expenses of the exhumation, as well as, sending it to Batac. But as I said, if Madame Tussauds Wax Museum is interested in this waxen image of Marcos, then we'll sell it to the, Madame Tussauds, and the money goes to, the Philippine government, So as far as we're concerned, let's exhume that body, get it out, get it to Batac, or send it to Madame Tussauds in Hong Kong.
Would they be interested?
I would imagine so. Madame Tussaud would, they take all sorts of images, including Watson images.
Just recently, Bongbong Marcos, through his lawyer, submitted drug test results to PIDEA and the NBI and the PNP. You believe them, of course. Do you?
I would never believe anything submitted by a liar like Marcos. I mean,
Even
this
if it
guy
is-
lied about his university degree, right?
Even if it is supposedly a certification from a renowned hospital, St. Luke's, although we did try to get official word from them.
Well, I would not put anything beyond this family. They could buy St. Luke's for all I care. This is not something that you would take firsthand coming, from Marcos. And as I said, if the COMELEC wants to requires us to do drug testing, Calyode and I will do it, but we're not going to do it to participate in this circus that is mainly out to clean Bongbong Marcos. No, this is not. And unfortunately, Isko Moreno and Soto, etc., they're all participating in this circus at this point in time, and it's shameless. It's shameful.
Okay, well,
we
Lenny
should
Robredo
address-
said she would undergo drug testing, basta random. But anyway, sir, we need to take a very quick break. When we return, we'll still have with us Vice Presidential hopeful Walden Bello, plus nominations out for music's biggest night, and among the frontrunners, 3 Phil-Am artists. Find out who else got nods after the break.
RPN, Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13 sa Zinday Utso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam na serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
As the country grapples with the highly contagious Delta variant, more children are getting infected with COVID-19. In fact, the number of infected kids aged 9 and below has almost doubled in the past month. How can we keep our children protected from a more aggressive strain? And is COVID-19 vaccinations needed for them right now? On the program today, your guide to keeping your children safe from the COVID-19 Delta variant. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. For most of the pandemic, children were at low risk of catching COVID-19, but now they're more vulnerable, especially to the Delta variant, leaving many parents wondering how best is it to keep them safe. Our guests are here today to tell us what we need to know. With us is Dr. Annalyn Reyes. She's a pediatric infectious disease specialist and assistant professor from the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. Also with us is Dr. Anjanette De Leon. She's a department manager of the Pediatric Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine of the Lung Center of the Philippines. Now, we understand that the increase in COVID-19 cases among children can be very alarming for parents. I'll start first with Dr. Anjanette. I'd like for you to share with our viewers how the new strain, the Delta variant, is impacting children.
You know what? It's just like any other virus. And right now,
wherein there's an increasing number of patients or cases of pediatric COVID cases in the country. Hindi siya gaya ng dati na pa isa-isa meron kaming kaso ng COVID, but more or less ngayon sa isang araw meron tayong nakukuha. Pero hindi siya kagaya ng kakaiba na mas grabe in the sense that a lot of them gets intubated gaya ng mga adult patients natin. But most of them would have mild symptoms, meaning they have cough, colds, fever, parang trangkaso. Minsan nagkakaroon sila ng sakit ng katawan. But there are some, most especially yung mga pasyente na merong mga comorbid conditions kagaya ng asthma, yung mga batang may mga cancer, mga batang may mga sakit sa buto, sakit sa dugo. The complicated patients, they are most at risk of having COVID infections.
Now, I'd like to talk about vaccines. Dr. Yen, let's talk about vaccines and how effective is it against the Delta variant for children?
So data have shown that all the vaccines that are approved by the Philippine FDA and those who are approved by the Emergency Use Authorization are still effective with the Delta variant. So all the vaccines have their effectiveness of around 60 to 95%, and even their effectiveness studies of severe and for those critical cases are more than 95%. So it was noted also in some data that the more the country are vaccinated, the lesser are the incidence of Delta variants.
Pag-usapan naman natin yung mga breakthrough infections. How does this COVID-19 vaccine actually protect you, and bakit nagkakaroon pa rin ng mga breakthrough infections yung mga fully protected ng COVID vaccine?
In our hospital, we also check the number of patients who are vaccinated, and whenever the patient is admitted due to COVID, we have to recheck if the patient is vaccinated or not. So in most of our patients, those who went into critical and severe stages, they are not vaccinated. But some patients who are in the asymptomatic and mild cases, they are vaccinated.
We want to emphasize that the COVID-19 vaccine is our best protection against the Delta variant. But while our children remain unvaccinated, there are steps that we can take to minimize the risk of bringing home the virus to them. Dr. Anjanette, worth reminding everyone how we can stay healthy during this very uncertain time.
The best thing that we can do is to keep ourselves informed. We have to be made aware of what the illness is all about. Minsan yun ang problema sa ngayon, kulang sa impormasyon ang mga tao, kaya natatakot sila magpabakuna, natatakot sila magpatingin, natatakot sila dahil hindi nila alam kung anong mangyayari sa kanila. So one thing that one can do is to, the usual is to keep ourselves clean, model a good behavior to our children and to people around. Ibig sabihin, maghugas tayo ng kamay, diba, we wash our hands for at least 20 seconds. Parati nating narinig to do social distancing. So that's when you raise your hands up high, ito po yung 2 metro. So that's the distance that the child should be having so that more or less they are protected. And then it's very important also that they should model good behavior. Ibig sabihin, pagpasok sa bahay, bago halikan, yakapin ang ating mga anak, maliligo muna ang isang tao para at least kahit paano kung merong mikrobyo na nasa ating katawan, we are assured that this is removed from us when we take a bath, we wash ourselves with soap and water. And as much as possible, importante rin that we should encourage our children on the right way of wearing the mask.
Kaya a reminder to the parents, don't forget to care for your own well-being so we can best care for our children when we take care of ourselves too. Now, COVID-19 vaccines are our shot of hope to end the pandemic, but which ones are safe for children? We have the answers after a short break, so stay with us here on MedTalk Health Talk. You're watching CNN Philippines. The country continues to see a rise in COVID-19 cases, even among children. Today, we want to provide honest and clear information on how the new, more aggressive Delta variant can impact them. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. Now, while more Filipino children are getting infected with COVID-19, these children typically display mild to no symptoms at all. Dr. Anjanette, walk us through some of the warning signs ng COVID-19 in children.
The child would usually have fever, cough, colds, parang trangkaso. Sumasakit yung katawan, minsan sumasakit yung tiyan, and then some of them would present as rashes. So it's the usual flu-like symptoms that we see left and right. But it's important, what is important is we check the exposure. Ibig sabihin, baka na-expose to sa isang taong may COVID or somebody else who is sick. So this is the turning point for us to see and check if this is really COVID that the child has.
There are reports that the Delta variant presents a little bit different for children as well as adolescents. Dr. Yen, can we discuss this a bit? Merong bang mga bukod-tanging simptomas na pinapakita mga bata kapag infected with COVID-19, especially the Delta variant?
Since December 2019, the COVID virus evolved rapidly and they change as they spread, multiply, and they mutate. So we already have a lot of variants in the Philippines. We have this Alpha variant, the Beta variant, the Gamma, the Delta, then the PH3 variants. So they said that the studies have shown that the Delta is more transmissible and more contagious. And there are also a lot of studies that were presented wherein the Delta variant presents more with colds and headache. However, in the Philippines, in most of our children, the presenting manifestations still manifest with fever, colds, and cough.
How often does COVID-19 infection lead to severe illness in children?
Yeah, it's really true. Especially now, we already have a lot of COVID cases in children. So before, we only have around, in my personal case, I only have around 1 to 2 cases per month, but now I have 4 to 5 cases per day. Some are in home care and some are hospitalized. So those children which are hospitalized and who goes to severe and critical cases are those who are asthmatic. So patients who are asthmatic, it's very hard for them to, if they really have the COVID, they go to cytokine storm. So my patients also with cerebral palsy, those who had leukemia, they also went to severe cases. So all those children with comorbidities, with asthma, leukemia, kidney diseases, those with other immunocompromised conditions, they usually go to severe cases.
Is being vaccinated, fully vaccinated, a big help in protecting their children?
So because studies have shown that the vaccination can really protect countries. So in countries where there is high vaccination rate, Delta variants are also decreased. So in the Philippines, they already approved, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, already approved the vaccination for children for 12 years and above. However, we are still waiting for the final approval, and we still have to vaccinate those persons who are at risk, like the elderly, the healthcare workers, because some healthcare workers are not yet vaccinated. So if time will come that we can already vaccinate the healthcare workers and the elderly and those who have complications, it would be best that the children will be vaccinated. So there are also a lot of ongoing studies wherein the vaccines are already tested to children 5 to 11 years old, and the preliminary reports are good, and then they also check the children for 6 months up to 2 years old, and they also have good preliminary results. So we'll just wait for it, and I really hope that if we have allocation of resources and if the persons who really need to be vaccinated first are already okay, we can also vaccinate our children.
Para dun sa may mga anak na 12 to 15 years old, would you advise them to seek and get their children vaccinated?
In the Philippines, the only vaccine that is approved by our FDA, but it is not yet in the rollout, but it is already approved by FDA, is the Pfizer vaccine. So it is approved to be given to 12 to 18 years old. However, in the Philippines, the vaccination is care of the government. So we still cannot buy the vaccine.
For now, though, we want to repeat that the best thing that we can do to protect our children is to get vaccinated ourselves. Vaccines are effective at preventing the spread of COVID-19, and they continue to work against all variants. So if you're eligible, please get vaccinated as soon as possible. Now, another effective way to protect our children is to always follow minimum health standards. Dr. Anjanette, it's worth reviewing these safety protocols para sa ating mga viewers. Let's discuss this.
We advise them to wash your hands. So be a good example to your children. Wash your hands for at least 20 seconds and then do social distancing. And then as much as possible, avoid touching the face, especially the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And then, of course, wear masks, protecting the nose and the mouth. It should be covered. And keep your house clean. Importante yung mga disinfectants around, cleaning it with soap and water, the surfaces, because these are areas that could wherein the virus can linger.
Dr. Anjanette, pag-usapan naman natin ang flu vaccine. Do you recommend this be given to children? What's your advice to the parents?
For me, it's very important that we give flu vaccine. Right now, it's the flu season. Most especially, it's raining right now. So we get cases left and right having flu-like illnesses, which is almost like COVID, right? Iba ang COVID, ang initial presentation is cough, colds, and fever. Same thing with flu. It's just cough, colds, and fever. So just to protect ourselves and the people around us, it's very important that we give them flu vaccine. It's available not only in government, but also in private institutions and private individuals.
We want to minimize anything that could harm or make your child's immune system any weaker. So despite the pandemic of COVID-19, marami pang ibang mga germs ang nasa paligid natin, and that's including the flu. So keeping your children healthy is as important as teaching them preventive measures. More on this when we return. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health, so stay with us on CNN Philippines. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought a whole new set of challenges for parents, including teaching children to follow health protocols. We've rounded up a list of the safety guidelines for children and how best to explain them to your family. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, where your health always comes first. Wearing a mask is key in reducing the risk of infection. Here at home, face masks need to be worn by children 2 years and older. But we all know how uncomfortable these face masks can be. Imagine what it's like for your younger children. Dr. Yen, do you have any tips to successfully introduce face masks to children?
Even in my clinic, so the children really don't like to wear masks. So I make it a point that the mother should wear their mask first so that the children can follow. So as mentioned, the mask should cover the nose and the mouth. So at times, I give the children mask who has cartoon characters and colors, and they were happy wearing it. So it's also nice that you will buy the masks which are with cartoon characters and with colors so that the children will be happy to wear it. And then when you show to them that you are wearing mask and the mother is wearing mask, they will also follow you.
Another good tip to follow is having a good relationship with your doctor, with your pediatrician, which is more important now more than ever. Dr. Anjanette, telehealth is available nowadays because of the current situation, but why is there some hesitation from a lot of people to actually connect with their pediatricians through telehealth?
Some of the patients or some of the parents doesn't have access to internet. So an option that we can give them is to use the telephone just to call them, or maybe go to the nearest health centers or nearest private physician or hospitals wherein they can do access or get access to health care. Another thing is, if we have internet, there are different platforms, medical platforms, that the doctors can use and the doctors use nowadays to access their patients.
Apart from wearing masks, we also need to teach children positive preventive measures against COVID-19, like social distancing and, of course, always washing their hands. Dr. Anjanette, let's discuss the best way to go about this.
You know what? I've met this acronym, WHEN, W-H-E-N. It's an easy thing to remember. So W stands for washing hands, would equal that of health, wearing mask, do social distancing. E is educating ourselves, educating the people around us of what to do in times of crisis, in times of infection. And N is for nutrition, giving our children the right nutrition, the right food, so that they will not be able to contract the disease. So that's when.
Now, Dr. Yan, what's your advice to parents who would like to have their regular schedule of vaccines for their child accomplished?
First, I do telemedicine with them. They will message me, and then I will check first the kids if they have cough, fever, and colds, and then I will give them the schedule time. Like, for example, I'll tell them that you'll come at around 10 a.m. So the next child will be at around 10:30. So I make sure that the kids are properly spaced also. The child who is scheduled for 10 o'clock will be vaccinated at 10 o'clock, and then by 10:30 another child will come. So I also space my children every 30 minutes. That's why in all of my patients, they still go for me for vaccination.
But ultimately, we need to talk to our children about COVID-19. They too are experiencing a big change because of this pandemic, and as much as possible, we need to help them feel safe as well as protected. Dr. Yan, can you share with us some tips on how parents can help their children cope with this Delta variant?
Because the children are really so afraid with the pandemic. And the best thing that we really have to do as parents and as doctors is to really educate them. We really have to tell them that, there is really a pandemic. So we can break it to them gently. We have to tell them properly that there is a pandemic, but there is, you might hear that a lot of persons are dying and there might be death among their loved ones. But we can always tell them the good side of things. We can tell them that we can prevent it by wearing the mask properly, and you also have to wear a face shield, especially if you are 2 years old and above. And then after that, as much as possible, kids should stay at home unless they go to their doctors for a vaccination.
Thank you, Pediatric Infectious Disease Specialist Dr. Annalyn Reyes and Pediatric Pulmonologist Dr. Anjanette De Leon for guiding us in our topic today. We hope our conversation was very helpful for our viewers. Let's all work together to keep our children safe and protected from the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and we'll see you again next time. Stay safe, everyone.